Hi guys, so today I just wanted to make a really quick video about 5 things that I wish I knew when I first started music production. Now I started producing electronic music a couple of years ago back in 2022 and since then I've obviously learned a lot about how to produce music, but I've also learned about learning music production. So I just thought I'd make this video to kind of summarize what I've learned over the last couple of years when it comes to learning music production and just becoming a better producer in general. It's kind of like a message to myself if I were starting again in 2025. So the first point is the fact that you'll never stop learning. As I showed you in a previous video, my first kind of step into music production was Kygo's electronic music production course on studio.com, and that was my first step into the music production world. You know, it was an intensive 30-day course. I learned a lot in terms of like how to produce electronic music from start to finish. And I think part of me at the time thought that if I just did that course, completed it, then that was kind of box ticked. I know how to produce electronic music now and I can like kind of move on, but that couldn't be further from the truth. I think the main thing that I've learned over the last couple of years making music is that you literally never stop learning. There are always things to do with sound design, the synths you're using, the plugins you're using that can be improved. And I think that it's really important to have that mindset that you're always going to be learning. Every time you make a new song, you're going to be learning something new, whether you know it or not. So I think it's really important just to bear in mind that there's going to be no kind of end moment where suddenly you know music production. I think it's really important to see it as a kind of fluid process and you're gradually getting better over time. And I'm sure music producers who have been in the industry for, 10, 20 years, they'll say the same thing, that they're still learning now as they continue to produce music and continue to develop their sound. So the second thing I wish I knew was that good workflow and organization are really important. When I first started producing music, it really was just a side hobby. I was doing it alongside my main kind of work, and it was just a bit of fun, to be honest with you. But if I'm honest with myself, when it came to producing music, I was a bit all over the place in terms of organization and workflow. I'd start like 5 different projects at the same time. I would only finish one of them, and I think it's really important to be as organized as you can. Even if you're just starting out as a music producer, I think it's really important to get organized from the beginning. Use spreadsheets, plan what you're going to be doing, plan your release schedule if you're going to be releasing music. And just doing that, listing things that you want to complete, listing tasks that you want to complete, doing that kind of thing is really important, and it just helps give you a sense of control that you're moving in the right direction. A bad habit that I had from day one was that, as I mentioned earlier, I would start about 5 different projects in a week and then I try and finish 1 or 2 of them, but actually ultimately I ended up only finishing maybe 1 if I was lucky. So I think that's another little tip within this one, would be to make sure that you're actually finishing every song you start. Focus on the one song you're working on. Don't try and make 5 different songs at the same time. Focus on one thing, try and finish it to the best of your ability. If the final product isn't that great, okay, fine, you learned something, move on from it. But try and focus on one thing at a time. Focus on the one thing in front of you, rather than trying to like do too much and then kind of spread yourself too thinly. When I look back at my hard drive now, I've still got hundreds and hundreds of unfinished Logic projects, which, let's be honest, I'm probably never going to come back to. So I really just recommend focusing on one song at a time and giving that your full attention, finishing that song and then moving on to the next one. So the third thing I wish I kind of knew when I started out was the power of sound design and layering sounds. When I first started producing music, I was obviously very inspired by Kygo's course. So a lot of my early music was based using some of the same synths that Kygo uses, such as Nexus and Silent. And don't get me wrong, that's great because it was just a quick way into kind of using sounds that I like. But over time, I think I've learned the importance of being able to kind of curate your own sound, your own library of different sounds that you like, so that you can create and develop your own sound. And similarly, it's very rare that I'll have a song which has one kind of synth as the melody. There's usually multiple layers on top of each other, different sounds kind of doing different things. And that's obviously something I learned on the Kygo course, but it's definitely really important because the way those layers interact with each other can create a whole new sound. So I think, yeah, it's just really important to keep experimenting with your sound design and your layering. And ultimately, once you hone in your kind of sound design, it enables you to create your own kind of unique signature sound, and then you can take that into your productions moving forwards. And the other thing I'd say really quickly is that when you are creating these new sounds and you do find a sound you like, you should definitely save it as a preset, because that way you can just come back to it and access it within your DAW whenever you need to. And I've been definitely guilty in the past of not doing that. And so when there was this sound that I did like that I wanted to kind of reuse from another song, I'd have to go back, open that project file, get the sound preset, save it, and then close it, open another project file that I was working on, and then bring in the preset from there. Whereas if you're actually just saving as you go along, then it makes it much easier in terms of workflow. You can just kind of quickly load the preset of sound that you want, and it just makes things a lot easier and smoother from an organization point of view. So the fourth point on my list is the importance of mixing and mastering. Now this might be a bit of an obvious one, because if you're just starting out in music production, you'll probably already know the importance and how mixing and mastering a song can take it from like here to here. I think the thing that I didn't kind of understand at the beginning was the importance of mixing and mastering. And I kind of view it as a separate art in itself to actually producing music, because you could actually have a separate career as a sound engineer. When I first started out, I really had no idea what I was doing in terms of mixing and mastering, and within the Kygo course there was some introduction to it, but it wasn't like in any way kind of in depth. So obviously as I've improved as a music producer, I have kind of got better at mixing and getting things a bit closer to what I want the final sound to sound like, but I'm still learning, and I still pay a sound engineer to master all of my songs, because I know that that's their profession and they're going to be able to get that song to a better level than I would be on my own. Plus having another set of ears listen to your music is always a good thing. I appreciate that not everyone can afford to do that, and if that's the case, I definitely recommend taking some mixing and mastering courses. There's plenty of free stuff on YouTube about this. So it's really probably just something I completely overlooked at the beginning, and it's not something I even knew about. I didn't even know what mixing and mastering was when I first started. So yeah, I would just highlight the importance of that. And if you can, bring someone in to mix and master your music for you. If you can't afford that right now, then just try your best to learn the intricacies of it, because once you've got that nailed down, it really helps to give your songs that professional feel and make sure that your tracks sound good on all kinds of different devices. And my fifth and final tip is don't be afraid to break the rules and experiment. I think sometimes with the way DAWs are set up, especially Logic Pro, which is the one I use, you can kind of fall into a trap of being quite formulaic in the way that you create your music. You know, you're just arranging blocks and then each song has a kind of similar pattern. And I feel like sometimes that can be a bit restrictive, not just in the way you arrange your song, but the way that perhaps you're going about producing music. Like, are you always starting with the same thing? Are you starting with the same kind of instrument and then building from there? I think it's really important to just keep kind of experimenting. Maybe one song you should start with just the drums. Maybe another song you should start with just the piano or some pads. Look at trying to kind of disrupt your production process as much as possible, because when you do that, you might find yourself going down roads that you maybe wouldn't have done if you're always producing in the same manner. So yeah, that's just something I thought of in terms of what I remember when I was first producing music, is that I would kind of follow the same process for each song that I was working on. And I still liked how they sounded, but they all sounded very similar. So I think that maybe mixing up your process, how you start producing each song, in what order you do things, can really help you to develop your sound and your production process, and you're definitely going to be learning new things along the way if you kind of disrupt the process in how you produce songs from start to finish. So there we have it. I hope you found this video useful. If you're interested in following along with my music production journey, please do subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.